Hey everyone, this is Jules. I have my design team project for Wild Orchid Crafts. This is for the month of July. No, actually, sorry, for the month of June. Our challenge was to create something highlighting laces, and as I did last month and did the little bookmarks with the lace and the charm, the idea popped in my head right then and there as I was sharing the video that these little guys can be great bracelet cuffs. And I remember seeing these a couple years ago when I went to an antique show with my mama. So using Wild Orchid Crafts, beautiful laces. I mean, oh my gosh, I'm so in love with the newest releases of laces that they have. But I made these beautiful cuffs, and you know, I'm like, I wonder who would wear them. And I'm like, I'd wear one. So I actually did. I wore it to my husband's graduation ceremony yesterday. Was it Sunday? Saturday. It was Saturday. And oh my, I wore this one actually. Just that when I went to go take some pictures with him, I had this on my left wrist and I was hugging him with it, and so you can't even see it in the pictures. But anyways, I was wearing a skirt and a cute little white blouse and some sandals, and I just thought they went really nice. So yeah, I really love these. So these are lace cuffs, and I try to stay with it just being fabric and you know, the everything that can be washable in like your delicate cycle. I didn't want to do anything paper or metal really. I probably could, but I didn't want to have anything like hanging off of it, which you can still totally do. But my idea was to make it to where if I needed to just throw it in the washing machine, I could, and it would be fine. So that's what I did. I just stuck with a lot of just the fabrics, just the laces and trims and stuff, and just added a couple elements like the buttons here. So this is, these are the cuffs that I made. And this one here, I made a dimensional flower using this fabric. This is some beautiful fabric I found at a store in Portland, and I made this huge, quite dimensional flower. And this, a lot of people make these different flowers, and I do show it in my video, so you guys can take a peek at that if you want to know how I made these. But these are some of the trims that I used. This, you guys may recognize this. Show some of them. There's some of them are already, well, actually they're all packaged back up, but this is the trim, the butterfly trim that I shared in my design team package. I also used the daisy, or the floral one. It's a Guipure cream daisy, and it's an actual link of all these little flowers. It's super durable, really pretty. I used some of this lace. It's a very narrow lace. I used one of these that I shared in the last design team package. This is one that reminds me of a vintage wedding. It's just absolutely gorgeous. A lot of the netted laces is what I used for this project. I also used one of the wider laces. It's actually this wide. I used this one, stitched it all the way in the center to make this ruffle piece right here. This one here I did use 2 layers of seam binding, and I just took the bottom ones and tied it and just let these dangle, and they just look so pretty just dangling. You can also just use them both to tie. Oops. You can use them both to tie if you wanted to, or the outside ones, however or whatever your mood is. But you know, I was going to use the lobster claws and the chain and add some charms and stuff to it. What am I doing? But I ended up not, just because of the fact that I was thinking, you know, I want these to be really washable. I don't want them to get caught on anything. So that's why I did that. So you can totally do that. So I used some seam binding. This is the cream, and then I used the white for this one. This is only 1 strand. I use this cotton lace. I also use this cream crochet lace to make this flower right here. I also use this one here. This is another crochet lace, and this is the button from Joann's. This is from these are from my stash. So yeah, I used that, and you know, I was gonna layer one of these appliques underneath this flower, but it was just hiding too much, so I didn't want to hide it too much. I could have made a smaller flower, but I didn't do that. But yeah, you can layer so many things on these. Super pretty. I even cut these out, these little flowers that I was going to use some more, but I didn't. I could have probably put another layer here. I don't, there's just so much stuff you can do. But I just made these, and I made them the way that they are now because that's just kind of what came about. These are all, the bases of these are some muslin. And I did do 2 layers. I actually didn't put the other layer on this one, but you can put another layer and then just stitch all the way around it so it looks a little bit more neater. I ended up doing that to make it neat, but then I ended up sewing the flower on there. So there's all these stitches on there. So, but it doesn't matter because it's not going to show when you wear it. So I thought they were just gorgeous. I made little leaves out of these too, out of that lace. Where is it? This one here. And yeah, it was fun. I just had a lot of fun. So anyways, if you guys want to stick around and watch, feel free. And here comes the video tutorial. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I'll talk to you later. So here I started with just measuring my wrists. I know how big the muslin needs to be. So I just snip and then pull and tear and then snip again and pull and tear just to get my piece. I'm just taking off the little frayed and loose strings there. So I'm cutting in 2 pieces because I'm going to actually stitch on one and then use the second part as a base to hide all the stitching. It didn't quite work out that way, but whatever. So I'm just going to pull out all the laces that I'm thinking to use for this project. And you know, I know a lot of you people don't have sewing machines because I hear it all the time, but you can totally do this by hand if you wanted to. It shouldn't be that hard. It's just going to take a little bit of time to get them all stitched down. But just to show you guys what I would do is, actually I'm gonna take this second piece off here, but I would do sort of what resembles a running stitch, but in an anchoring kind of a way. Um, so of course you string it and then you knot it at the bottom so it doesn't come all the way through. So here's just a little bit more closer just to show you how I'm doing it. And when I anchor, I basically do like a tiny, like a half a cross stitch or something. Let me get a little closer here. I'll do it in slower motion so you guys can see it. But I go all the way down the middle and then I go along the entire sides. And that way it just anchors it down. It just takes a little bit of time, like I said, but you can totally achieve the same thing doing it by hand. So here's in slow-mo. Just gonna go in and you'll see that I will put the needle back in right next to it, but just enough to make a little bit of a stitch to hold it down. Okay? Pretty easy. Just be patient with it if you want to make a few of these. Okay, and there we go. And then you just stitch and anchor it, closing it up on the back side. So I'm just going to grab a few other different ones and kind of layer it down to see what I want. And yes, I am hiding the bottom one, but it does show through some of the netted lace, and it does add some texture and stuff there too. So it's fine. I'm doing some of that too for cushion thickness, and you can see some of them if you don't cut them all the same length. You can see them on the edges and stuff. So here I'm just doing a double layer of seam binding in the cream right down the center. So I'm going to take it to my machine so you guys can see. And I just stitch right down the middle. I'm not trying to be neat and go all the way around the design or anything. I'm just taking it straight down the middle, and you can totally see the stitching all the way down the middle, so it's not a big deal to me. It's supposed to be a shabby chic project, so shabby chic, you're going to see a lot of distressing and a little bit of offness to it, if you know what I mean. So this is two layers of the seam binding that I just stitched all the way down the middle as well, letting about 4 inches hang off either end, 4 or 5 inches or so. You can do it longer if you want to. Here I'm just doing some more secure stitching on the edges. And this is the 2 butterflies that I cut off the actual linked trim with all the butterflies on it. I'm just going to stitch up and down right on top of the body of the butterfly. I'm going in reverse here. And here's the other one on the other side. And there is typically on every sewing machine a reverse button so you can make it stitch going backwards. And that's just for extra security for me. And that's what it looks like on the back. All right, so I'm going to use this old Sizzix die, and I cut quite a few layers of them in the muslin, and I'm going to go ahead and start building a flower. So I use 2 of the singular flats on the bottom, and then I do quarter folds and just stitch it down at the very corner, just that it's kind of nice and loose and it can fluff out on the outside edges. So I'm just going to stitch, anchor down. There we are. Now I'm going to grab the rose print, and here I folded it in a quarter, and I wanted to do it in slow-mo so you guys can see. I'm going to layer it right on top of in between 2 of the pieces or partitions or whatever for the bottom part, just to do it like an alternating kind of an effect. Again, going all the way around and still anchoring at the very point, the very center of the flower. So starting to fluff up now. So now here I'm going to sandwich 1 piece of muslin in between 2 pieces of the rose print fabric. Grab it in the center and pull it all the way straight down into the very middle of the flower. And I'm going to stitch it a couple different times and then anchor it on the back side and tie a knot at the back. And then I fluff it out there. And you'll see that it starts to fray just a little. So that's the one I'm going to put up on the top. So here, I could have done this right after I put the big rose on top, but I don't know what I was thinking. Actually, this is my first time making these, so you learn as you go, right? So I'm doing the actual base, the second piece of muslin. This is to hide all the stitching on the back side, and I'm lifting the edges of the middle lace. I don't want to stitch that one down. I kind of want to stitch around it along all 4 edges, and then I go back to do the flower. And this is when I realized, why did I do that for? I could have done the base after this, but whatever. So I'm using this lace here to cut out some leaves, and I'm going to end up tattering it just a little bit. So I'll just kind of ball it up in my hand and just rough it up. There we go. And it frays some of the edges, and it just looks cool. I like it. So I'm going to add 2 pieces, kind of unevenly, and then stitch them down onto the bottom of the flower. I ended up doing another 2 pieces of leaves. I'm just stitching it down, and I did put some cheesecloth there, and I do realize that after a couple washes it's probably going to completely undo itself and fray apart, come apart and stuff, but whatever, it doesn't matter to me. I just wanted to do that at the time. I can use tulle next time, or a sheer fabric, or a lacy fabric. For now, it's the cheesecloth. So here are all the stitch marks there for stitching the flower down. But you know, when you wear it, it's going to be, that side's going to be right on your arm. So it's not going to show. Not a big deal. You just do it different the next time. So here's that. On the second one that I made, I'll show you too here in a sec. But I really liked how this came out. I'm playing with the new camera too, you guys. I hope it's focusing really well. So here is the lace, the flat lace, and I'm gonna do, it's pretty wide, it's like 2.5 inches wide. So I'm gonna do a running stitch to ruffle it up right down the middle of it. And I kind of mess with it a little bit as I go so I can make sure that I am getting the length that I want. So there I just anchored it down and snipped the rest off, and closing it up there. So I already stitched these 2 pieces down on either side of the muslin, and I'm going to do 2 pieces of the seam binding there too and stitch that down. And it is 2 pieces of seam binding, but I stretch it out long enough so that the end reaches the end of the cuff on both sides, so it looks like 1 piece. And that's just to make it kind of strong while I attach it to the muslin. And then I put down, I did stitch down the ruffled lace and then some more cheesecloth. And then I made this flower with the crocheted lace. And I'm stitching just along the inside edges of the flower. So I can add my button there. And this is just a store-bought button from Joann's, I think it is. So I'm just going to anchor down. I think I went around the button about 4 or 5 times. And I think, one of the things that you should probably keep in mind is using maybe a quilter's thread, because it does hold, it's a really strong, thick thread, and it would hold this really, really well. So just anchoring it down there, and I'm done with that. Oh, no, I'm not. Here we go with two buttons. I almost forgot about that. Actually, this is just a couple of pearl colored buttons from my stash, and I am just centering those flowers on the ends there, anchoring it down on the back there too with a couple knots, and now I'm done. That's it.